Hey everybody, welcome. It doesn't ever happen this way. I learned that there's a group that meets in here every other Thursday, and the schedule got changed because of the holidays, so we should not have this problem again. But we apologize for the room not being set up. Thank you all for helping to make that happen. We are hoping that a microphone will be coming. So how are you hearing back there okay? All right. So sometimes poetry is hard to read with a shout, so if we don't get a mic, we'll still do our best, those who are reading tonight. And thank you all for coming and braving the snow and the cold and the lack of parking and the room that's not ready. It's been a pretty great night so far.
Microphone may arrive soon.
A microphone may arrive soon.
May.
Actually,
batteries for the microphone may arrive soon.
Actually, it's not a wireless mic. It's a wired mic, and they just didn't put a cable in there.
Okay.
All right, well,
It's
okay.
We're okay, we're okay. Take it away, take it away, let's roll.
Thank you for checking,
Roll.
Brian. Anyway, welcome to Midstream Reading Series. We're glad you're here, and I'm going to, there's a few people that I don't know in the room, many that I do. I'm going to send around a piece of a notepad. If you want to be on the mailing list, and you're not now, you'll get an email a couple times a month just about this evening. We don't use the mailing list in any other way. So if you want to be on it, and you're on it, I have it to you probably 8 times. Thank you.
But there might be someone else.
Yeah, there might be, thank you. Let's see. Well, welcome to Unity Church. This evening is being recorded, as always, and it will be posted on our website, which is at wordpress.com. There's obviously a lot going on in the church tonight. We're going to keep the door closed. If it gets really hot, and somebody wants to open it for ventilation, then please feel free.
I'm sorry.
Hello. Well, but if you're here to solve a problem, we appreciate that.
Really?
While he's doing his work here, I'm going to start us off by reading a poem of my own. This is a time of year that's dark in more ways than one, and we had a National Day of Mourning today, and all of those things that can feel kind of dark and heavy. I hope that we all also have blessings in our lives and things that uplift you. My little contribution to that is reading something a little lighter tonight, so I'm going to stir that into the mix. This is a poem in 4 short parts called Childhood Games. 1. On summer days, when it was raining, my sister and I played double solitaire on the bedroom floor, our concentration marked by card slap and rain spatter. Hands flew like startled birds. Our little brother, decidedly too young. We allowed to serve us lemonade, cookies if available. 2. One night, Dad and I played Chinese checkers by the campfire. He watched me build, move by move, my game-winning play, then blocked it. I flung the board off the picnic table, marbles scattering into the woods. I'd been such a calm child until then. 3. Let's play hunter, Grandma. You be the deer. 4. After lights out, my sister and I played unauthorized games like Escape the Bad Guys or Capture the Runaway Horses until our rowdiness drew attention. Then switched to whispering stories of ourselves in another time and place, the fruits of our fancy ripe and ripening. I forgot to say, for those that I haven't met before, I'm Marg Walker, one of the co-hosts of the reading series. So I'll welcome you again. We have 4 really lovely readers tonight, and we are going to, our leadoff hitter is Jim Lenfestey, and I'll introduce each one and then they'll read. After a career in academia, marketing, communications, and journalism on the editorial board of the Star Tribune, where he won several Page 1 awards for excellence, since 2000, Lenfestey has published 18 volumes of poems, essays, anthologies, and a memoir. For 15 years, he chaired the Literary Witness poetry program in Minneapolis, and led a summer poetry class on Mackinac Island in Michigan. In 2020, he received the K. Sexton Award for significant contributions and leadership in the Minnesota literary community. In November, Milkweed Editions published his 8th poetry collection, Time Remaining, Body Odes, Praise Songs, Oddities, Amazements. He serves on the boards of Red Dragonfly Press in Northfield, the Hellbender Poetry Gathering in North Carolina, and is the founder of Poets, Writers, and Musicians Against the War on the Earth. He lives in Minneapolis. Welcome, Jim.
So I have a good voice, I think you'll hear me. Many of you are poets, want to be poets, we're all poets. So the book is Time Remaining, these are all poems from this book, and I'm going to open with your obituary. Where poets go. For Richard O. Dick Moore. The Protestant Cemetery in Rome. Tomb of Keats' bubbled blood and Shelley's beach corpse bones. The couch in Oregon, housing William Stafford's quiet pad, his quiet pen. The cobbles in worn Nazareth, where Taha Muhammad Ali crafted peace in poems inside his tiny trinket shop. And Dick Moore's monk cell in assisted living in Marin, where he knew the spine of every book and made an eye-blind whiteboard sing exquisite blindness sonnets, 3 lines from Dick. It is not a fair exchange, light for dark. So much remains on the other side of light. A world lost is never a fair exchange. I remember digging a hole for our dog, deep as I could among tangled cedar roots, and my daughter could not put him in, my wife could not put him in. What poems he wrote with his generous tongue. Poets earn no better place on earth than dogs, or soldiers shot and rotting in a trench. All get our one slim slice of soil or air. Organs plucked by condors like cello strings, hymned by fungus, dug by moles, licked by flame, a modest cloud of ragged smoke. But listen. A poem by Sappho was just discovered in an ancient dump in broken Egypt. Unfurled now from papyrus junk, the whole earth trembled as burnished sheave flowered into Greek, already twice sung in English as the Islamic State blasts and burns the stone remains of Nineveh. Remember that? As the Islamic State blasts and burns the stone remains of Nineveh. So many fragrances in the rubble. Songs sung at dawn before the battle, lost. A mother before an infant's bed, a man incanting a lover's chin, a child chanting charms before the dark. And Dick Moore's suite of sonnets arriving 10 days past his death, a book bright as Milton's Angel, a brilliant stop to time. A brilliant stop to time. Tuberculosis stilled the lungs of Keats and Stephen Crane, my hero. Seawater filled up Shelley with cobalt blue. Emily claimed the apt name Bright's disease. And Dick Moore, the final tick of sturdy clock at 95. Some dumb thing will silence me. A blow to the head, a drunken fender, the creaking of the clock, bird flew. And you? And you? So, cobble up a shrine before you die. A dogged hole entangled in the roots of words. Inspire, to fill the mind with grace. Expire, breathe out a final song. That's your obituary. So, Pablo Neruda much influenced me in writing these books. His odes, his fantastic Odas Elementalis. And so here's what happens when you read Pablo Neruda's poems at dawn. Reading Neruda's odes at dawn. I feel a kind of shame listening to this largeness, generous songs one after another cascading down the page like recriminations that I did not see enough to praise, that I did not shout loud enough for the miners, for the workers, though I did shout for the fecund earth, but in squares of daily journalist prose collapse into the dump or igniting small fires in the cabin. Shredded newsprint whose dark headlines recede daily into the past like footfalls of marching soldiers back into the earth, igniting nothing in the human heart to unlock the branch before heaven, the fertile branch of plum and cherry and orange. My God, how we have forsaken you for the corruption of impermanent ink, abandoned astonishment for the plow extraction, tearing out your hair to redden the dawn with fire. Los Angeles, may we grieve. Tearing out your hair to redden the dawn with fire. And Neruda knew, who saw the infinite in grains of salt from the sea, the sweat of minds, the multitudinous bee. I am exhausted reading Neruda's odes. His generous lips and belly, his radiant open palms, pulling up his violent socks, shaking his salt, framing the womanly curve of the spoon, the manly curve of the fork, the smooth neck of the carafe of wine. Nothing left to do but give and give again. Let me leave nothing on the plate of this life but crystals of salt. So now there's an order here, and I don't know what it is. It doesn't make a difference. So I wrote all these odes to parts of the body, and once I got into it, I was unstoppable. But here's one that comes a little sideways. So my daughter lived in Malawi in Africa. She and her husband working on malaria research. They were there 3 years. So we went to visit our daughter. We're there, and she said, let's go on safari. Here's what happened. A memory in the body. South Luangwa National Park, Zambia, 2000, of the Common Era. The guide, a chain-smoking, drunken white racist from Malawi, took a wrong turn in South Luangwa National Park and stuck his rover to the axles in a swale of mud. We were looking to see leopard, abundant here, who break the necks of prey by leaps of stealth 6 feet away, then lounge in treetops, heavy-lidded observers of feeble, thin-skinned idiots stumbling humbly from their protective steel shell. Into thick mud studded with lion prints, each pad big as a silver buck, in a glade of mopane trees, hard as steel, splintered by elephants, maybe the same ones we saw earlier, stomping their jumbo hassocks with irritation at the sight of us. As he wheezed and sweated in the mud under the rover with his insane cig habit and inadequate screw jack, no highboy, no radio phone, no water at all. With sharp U-bolts hugging the axle aimed directly at his colluded heart. I entered the dreaming satisfaction of his death. And planned my escape through the teeming veldt, a naked, upright, righteously pissed off Homo sapiens defended solely by a sharp mopane splinter in my paw. I entered a landscape fled millenniums ago, not hunter but prey. And as I imagined my walk and my thirst in the thin fur of my shirt, I grew the spine of an older, forgotten self, full of bluster as a young elephant waving his ears, tall as a giraffe, snarky as a warthog, proud as the pride of lions seen yesterday devouring a beast twice my size, licking their bloody lips, given over to no certainty, where the road led, humble and unafraid. On the last screw of the jack, the car broke free. So, let's see if I can find this one, because this is even better. There you go. It should be right. Nope, okay, pull this one. So, as you look at parts of the body, it turns out that you're covered in them. Every part has its story, and you look and you begin to see that everything differently. This is called integument. We have 7 systems in the body: the nervous, digestive, pulmonary, circulatory, endocrine, skeletal, of course, the skin. Integument. What a marvelous wrapper, snug even between toes. It shines in the sun and breathes like a forest, as if the hairs were fir trees, and the skin a swamp with roots below water, allowing the whole earth to live in its breathing. And when slashed with a knife, it glues itself back together, leaving only a nick and a road and a story. Covering up every sin, every broken heart, every living love, every word unspoken, every song unwritten, every ugly thought. And it sweats with the work of the hunt and the gather of roots and the digging of graves and the raising of shrines and the fabrications of love. Whose idea was it anyway to cover up this perfect covering filled with functions and history and signals? The great plains of skin harboring thatches of fur like cottonwoods in the washes. Yet, we look down on the coverings of our fingers as we type poems and memos and screeds which speak more about hangnails and headlines and lost loves. While the skin holds everything in. Final barrier between the messy ooze of us and the sharp rocks of the world, which, if they breach, it heals. So I'm 80. You get up in the morning, and here's a sound that you're going to hear in the morning, and every time I get in and out of a chair. Oh. Oh. So I thought I'd write an ode to groaning. Ode to groaning. Song of failing time. Screech of stuck limbs. Rasp of joints. Slog of flaccid muscles. Rise with moaning exhalations of stupendous effort. Satisfied discomfort. Slowly lower into the car seat with its tangle of pedals. Up out of the treacherous curb, heave from the soft couch, settle hard on the kitchen chair. Roll out of the tangled bed like a pine log felled in the forest catastrophe. Pull at socks on distant feet, stubbled with cramped toes, tipped with razor blades. Hips set in concrete, grinding into the soft legs of distant, elusive pants. And so to groaning. Entitled, allowed this pleasure of venting oneself unto oneself. In the company of oneself, precariously mobile, free as yet of attendance, diapers, drool. So some of you, I hope, pay attention to etymology, the history of our language. And etymology is the difference from entomology. And those two differences have fascinated me for about 50 years. Because how can it be? You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson, America's smartest man ever, said language is fossil poetry. And I puzzled over this and came up with this distinction between the two. Ode to the sound of N. Splice the sound N into etymology with only a small discriminating pressure of the tongue on the intersection of the hard palate and the solid ceramic blocks of incisors, adding a soft, low growl and a wolf of the throat. And we veer away from the history of the constellations of words swirling like nebulae inside the dark linguistic universe of our mouths, where a comet tongue like a fiery eel carves discriminations in icy light. To change the direction of history into living bees swarming the tops of trees, and butterflies, my God, butterflies, how did their impossible body plan arise? And ants, do not forget industrious ants, who inspired tireless Edward O. Wilson as a boy to see in their persistent trails the intersection of all the living universe, how it tunnels together. And termites, with their wizard enzymes, digestive paths harder to mimic than modern science once supposed. The massive meaning built into the small of it. Built into the small of it. These two clusters of linked sound separated by a muscle slickly pressed when called to change the scale of the universe from lost to vast. World with an N. Amen. So, all of you poets out there, I know you experienced this. The terror of publishing. The terror of publishing. What if, 1,000 years from now, that sound, the sound of that syllable fails to sing? That line break that obsesses us, the break between darkness and light, the one the cop pulled us over for, gave us a costly ticket. What if it slashes one sound too soon? What if the 100th ending, the one you finally didn't use, was the true one, your courage failing? What if the mother in the book is too much like your real mother? An angel, or not enough, washing your foul mouth out with a lie? What if the scene between father and son is not terrible to behold, Saturn's head blistering the skin, but maybe laughable, a comedy? And the gods you invoked in chapter 1 or in the prologue or the title of the metaphor in verse 3 are displeased, surly at the nasty twist given their rollicking ways, so they torture you night and day with the errors of your limited imagination. What if the critics, of which you are chieftain, riding over the dunes and burnos and crop and whip, what if they miss the point entirely? The lance sliding by the ribs without even a nick of skin or a drop of blood. What if that rude flock of starlings patrolling the lawn, freighting the breeze with sparks of inane chatter, is my audience, indifferent, save for a bug, a worm. Or that seagull passing by, solitary, silent, almost elegant, but really a scavenger. A thief is me, the great author, stealing everything. Okay, one of the joys of getting out of this parenthood trap after 4 children and 40 years of that, and the real work, and I got a residency at the Anderson Center. Many of you know it down at Red Wing. It's a bit of paradise. These exist around the world, nothing better. And I did not know that something like a month of focusing on creative work existed in the world. But in my late 50s, early 60s, I found this. And so they have a tower there. If you go down to Red Wing, it's the old tower view, and it's 175 feet high, and it's the old water tower, and you get to go up there. And I went up there, and this happened. Dawn from Tower View, Anderson Center at Tower View, Red Wing, Minnesota, October. While I wait for dawn from the top of the tower, Highway 61 moans its tired song through the dark. So many stars overhead. Are they real or painted by the artist's hand? Before the sun rises, how lonely it is. My flashlight illuminates only a book and a mind hemmed in by dew on paint. Hey, Pink. Hey, come on in, kids. Who told me to arise in darkness to snatch the moon and planets before the sun wakes up? And why is she not here with me? I read Chinese poems and a haiku or two. Why didn't I win that book award, I wonder? I told some of the truth, same as other writers. Still, the sun refuses to rise at my command. Is that a donkey I hear braying in the distance? Or only an ass scratching itself with a pen? Dawn from Tower View glows slowly through the Dew Street glass, the sun taking its own sweet time to clear away the razor moon, the planets one by one. The last planet, bright as a headlamp, cries out before it too succumbs to dawn's heavy hand cradling oranges. Me and my book watch as leaves appear in waves and birds awake, beaks chattering. A silver milk truck gathering light grinds its gears onto the highway. 6 of 10 wheels touching the pavement. More farmyards ahead for him. Holstein mothers groaning in stalls while I loiter with ink and pen. Farmers will feed 8 billion today. How does my work compare? So much corn growing along the road to Red Wing. Impenetrable walls, sweeping quilted hills. Soon the sun burns dew from rustling stalks. Harvesters like jousting knights will charge back and forth between the silos, lances flashing. Like Don Quixote, I watch from the ancient tower. Retired from battle, Dulcinea resting, Queen Honeybee in her nearby hive. I'm loony as a monk illuminating sacred texts, one letter at a time, no hurry, like the lazy sun. Well, what do we got? How long? A couple more minutes? I don't know idea.
One more poem.
One more? Okay. Let's see. I'll do this one because this is you. This is us. It's called Lobes. It's different than somebody else. Lobes, L-O-A-V-E-S. While I listened to the poet in the bookstore, and commuters listened to radio stuck in traffic, and others fled calamity across indifferent borders, she parked her car before the bakery next door. As I emerged into a moist drizzle that mirrored my melancholy mood, she opened the hatch of her station wagon, a Taurus, and loaded in a bag of loaves. A bag big as a yoga ball, white as an ice cap, knotted at the top, bulging with the round edges of old loaves like curling stones. She loaded in another bag, her white hair damp and short, face clear and businesslike, Taurus the bull, strong and rusted. I lifted the next one from the sidewalk, surprised at the weight, heavy as a human body, and hefted it to her. Then the remaining 2, for the old, she said, they don't have much money. She drove off, filled to the brim with bread. A few days old and not a spot of mold, even in the dampness of rain. And I, who already felt full inside, yeasted by the poet's simple ingredients, sound, sense, rhythm, and heat. Drove home in my old Subaru, said to feel like love. Radio off, and for the nonce felt no hunger inside, nor in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next reader is Leah Rivamonte. Leah explores family and place, particularly in relation to the effects of colonialism. A second-generation Filipino immigrant, she was born and raised in Northern California. She has a background in theater, painting, and nonprofit arts administration. Currently, she is occupied with a hybrid project, visual, prose, and poetry, inspired by travel and childhood memories of place, as well as a novel she has yet to abandon. Good, no. Her poetry chapbook, Tell Me When You Get There, was published in 2019. She lives in St. Paul with her husband, Matt Brown. Welcome, Leah.
you were just told I was born and raised in Northern California. This is called California Dreaming. And I took her hand over narrow, broken sidewalks, winding past the houses we knew so well as kids, the one with the purple garage doors, the one with the pool and the front patio, and the perpetually tanned Russell, Mom called him, Mr. Wilson to us, gut hanging over his trunks, stooping to snatch the newspaper from his oil-stained drive. Up we climbed, gripping one another tighter now, tense with anticipation, squeaking by the spiky foliage crowding the walkway. Some of the yards, desert-like, others, feasts of dusty green leaves and odorless shock red flowers. Finally, skirting the bollards with a chain barrier, we continued our climb, weaving our way through the tall grass. That grass. I wish I could say nothing had changed, that the oak trees with their deep creviced bark, gnarled limbs arching, still beckon to us. Climb, whispering, bury your treasure in the hole in my trunk. It'll never be discovered. Insisting we run, run, run. And the breeze that rustled our hair, singing through the leaves, tickling our ears as we dodged pretend enemies, stumbling over rocks and anthills, our socks stuck with burrs, razor-edged brush cutting the skin on our arms until bent over breathless with laughing, we hear Dad's whistle. But she let go of my hand. The hill is crummy with shoddy houses, the trees raised, the man with the belly no longer, Mom and Dad with his summoning whistle in the forever elsewhere. And that tall grass, beloved, golden, shimmering carpet, I learned is not natural to the region, but accidentally seeded by Spanish missionaries. Nothing but weeds. Would we have thrilled as much sprinting and tripping through native bunch grass? It grows in circular clumps, leaving ample space for wildflowers, favors wildlife, provides nesting materials and food, retains nutrients, prevents erosion, holds moisture, gives back to the earth, unlike the grass we knew so well that weakens the soil, always wanting more than its share of water. Were we like the grass, looking pretty and taking our pleasure without a care for the future? Does it matter that we were innocent? No idea that it was Miwok children who should have been playing their mischievous games in this place, that it was Spanish friars whose religion we embraced without question, their cassocks embedded with alien seeds, spreading these pretty, golden, malevolent weeds.
Wow.
Saturdays, we wandered between the hills and the sea, following the river, its grassy banks lined with shacks shut for the season, an occasional fire-red vine curling along a window box. We'd visit his sister, who lived on a ruined orchard with her husband John in a house of crumbling stucco, the walls streaked with rust. They were potters, thin and pale, with fine muscled forearms and eyes bleary from tending the kiln through the night. Nevertheless, we were always welcomed with hot soup served in beautiful speckled bowls, and after lunch they napped while he and I waded through the broken trees, sweeping our cheeks over lichen-blanketed bark, kicking bruised apples beneath the rutted dirt, or pitching them high, watching them arc and fall into the neighbor's field. Making our way back to the house, we'd stop to peer through the cloudy studio glass, his sister and John at work again, slicing through blocks of silk-colored clay, turning, kneading, rolling, and turning it again. John's glasses sliding down his nose, her red gold hair tumbling out of their pins as they heaved and slapped each wedge against the hard-surfaced bench. Sometimes we joined them, slipping the chilly slabs through our own clumsy fingers, groping the unwilling mud. Sometimes a headline grabs you, like this one from a small-town newspaper in Maine. It was called, "Shoeless Woman Fears Whistling Man." It is almost morning, and she is standing on the shoulder of the highway, hoping for a ride. A man across the road whistles Graceland. Her blistered feet are bound in gauzy hose, her metal worn to the bone. When she was 5, eating a popsicle down to the stick and getting it stuck was a kind of fear. But now, she is that woman falling from the balcony, trying to watch the parade like Emma Bovary in flames. She asks the man to stop. Her ears are stinging, and she can't walk home without her shoes. So this next is I guess you'd call it a prose poem, and it's up to you to see what is true and what is not. I call it milk music. On Thursdays, we'd visit the Thorsons, where the waist-high jug of milk stood in the middle of the living room. Mrs. Thorson, in her apron, or her son John, ladled the cream off the top and slurped the thick golden goodness from a charred wooden spoon while we watched. The room was bare, with a painted wood floor, the pigs out back. My sister and I held hands, fascinated, slightly sick. Bits of hay and mud stuck to the bottom of John's shoes. My toes curled. The pigs were happy in the rain, sloshing. Our rubber boots made our feet sweat. The Thorsons weren't Catholic, but the son John reminded us of Mr. Fitzgibbons, the janitor at Our Lady of Loretto. Mr. Fitzgibbons wore shoes with thick soles like John's and made our elbows tingle when he dragged his metal mop bucket and his bad leg through the courtyard on the textured concrete. Mr. Fitzgibbons was 123, slow but thorough. He was holier than the nuns. We knew this because the lavatory smelled like holy water, and when we blessed ourselves while at the sink, music flowed from the faucets. Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Song, or was it Kathy's song, the one about rain? That milk, too. We were told if we drank it every day for 30 days in a row, we would sing better and play the guitar. Sadly, we always ran out before the end of the month. So, I imagine some of you who are about my age or thereabouts, I know you younger people won't know this, but we used to have carousels and carousels of slides of every vacation we ever took. This is called Lilies Among Thorns. In the slide, Dad and Uncle Tio make pretend horrified faces at the camera as they lean out over the edge of a cliff at the Grand Canyon. Was there a rail? I don't think so. There was Technicolor, though. The two men, compadres, but not related. Uncle Tio, despite his name, which sounded like uncle in Spanish, was not our uncle, but my grandfather's cousin. Except my grandfather was not blood, not our mother's real father, she told us one night in LA. We were sitting in our trailer parked in Manon Rose and Mano Santos' driveway, not our real auntie or uncle, we were learning just then. She cried when she told us, but when we said it didn't matter, he was still our grandpa. She stopped and said we were right to think so, and she wouldn't be there without him, which meant, of course, that we wouldn't either, and besides, didn't we all love him anyway? In the next slide, we are standing with our cousins, Uncle Tio's kids, hoping to get splashed by the faucet in a campsite at Lake Mead. It's 100 degrees. Our parents have gone gambling in nearby Las Vegas, and we are not allowed to swim. Cousin Rod is in charge. He is handsome. In a few years, he will tour with the Young Americans to represent the brown element of our country. Wholesome, white teeth, smart, likes to sing folk songs. He wore a blue blazer, same as me when I was in school. Lilium interspinous, read the patch on my breast pocket. Lily among thorns. I am like him, brown, wholesome, straight-toothed, good at tests, like to sing. There are more, thousands of small, square transparencies, holding thousands of family vacation memories. But this was my father's domain. Remote control, storage compartment, adjustment foot, manual focus knob. The carousels sit fully loaded. And this is about that grandpa that wasn't really our grandpa. It's called Yours Sincerely, Frank. I saw you, finally. Not sprawled out face down on the threadbare living room carpet on a rainy February in that sad, dank house on 12th Avenue, dead from pneumonia or grief or both, but somewhere in the sun. You in a brim felt hat, stylin vest over a white shirt, sleeves rolled, and light-colored bell-bottom trousers. You posed sitting on a mound of undetermined vegetation wrapped in chicken wire. Your smile is shy, embarrassed. The fronds of a large coconut tree behind radiate out, framing your face and body. Your shoes are leather, worn. Your arm rests between your knobby knees. You are thin. I remember that. But who is Frank? The Frank scrawled across the bottom of this professionally snapped picture, and the Frank I recently located in the white pages of the 1961 Oakland phone book at that address. I knew you as Grandpa, Mama's Papa, Grandpa's Kikoi, and Francisco, father to 3 sons, the lot of them cackling, joke-cracking, irreverent, handsome smokers. I knew you as the resourceful man who grew tobacco, cabbage, and corn in that tiny brick yard. The grandpa who smoked a pipe, the man who dug the pit, set up the spit, squatting beside it all day, turning the pig slowly as he must. The pig gave up its only life for our feast, but you tended it with such love. This grandpa dried things, tobacco leaves, corn kernels, fish. He worked as a night watchman at a women's college, looking too gentle in his uniform, notwithstanding the badge over his pocket, flashlight and keys dangling from his belt. He was perpetual motion, fixing things, growing things, cooking, cleaning, fetching, mowing, never idle. So much I don't know. Why did he leave his small town of Hindang Leti? Why is only the name of his father, Marcario, known? How did he meet my grandmother in big city Cebu? And how did he come to raise Mom as his own? I wish I could sit across the table from Henry Louis Gates Jr. and watch with excitement as the TV host unfolds the map of my ancestors, my tears falling, blotting the ink as we discover their stories. The whole world moved by what we learn. What I know is ghost thin, ephemeral. Grandpa brought home gigantic plastic bags of yellow popcorn from the college. Belonged to the Bohol Circle, wore glasses, and a straw hat to protect his baldness. He was thin, but wiry strong. He tickled us, loved our giggles, tolerated us banging on the piano, took us to Mass and to Chinatown for treats after. My heart aches when I think of you, Grandpa. If only I could hear your voice telling me how you became sincerely Frank. And this is my last. I call it 5. It's a very odd kind of, I don't know what it is, but perhaps you will recognize at least the first and the last stanzas. 5. 1. They will be sitting at a table, a long rectangle in a windowless room, recording device in the center. Almost immediately, someone will begin to yawn. Each of the 15 people seated at the table will have a small stack of recycled blank white paper and chipped ceramic mugs full of pens within reach. Soon, 3 more are yawning. Others are getting up for coffee, piling small plates with bagels and fruit. 2. We are sitting at a narrow wooden table playing cribbage under gas lanterns. He is winning. He nearly always wins. He rattles off his points while I add the numbers slowly, forgetting each time what is worth what. He is patient. Did you add up your pairs? Start with the 15s first. It's easier that way. Oh yeah, I say. It is very warm and growing warmer. The logs in the stove have caught. The fire is ferocious. The brook outside is cacophonous. When I step out the door, nature overwhelms. That is not why I can't add fast. 3. I am admiring the flawless skin of a friend's wife. I do not know her well. She is my age. Her thick hair is very dark. A few incorrigible gray strands fly up at her part. I say incorrigible because I imagine her staring at them in her bathroom mirror, saying in her soft, quizzical voice, "What are you trying to do to me, you grays? You are betraying me. I soften you with expensive lotions and creams, massage you with fragrant oils." She smiles before applying her bright coral lipstick. My husband's friends will not care. Only my own relatives notice these things. 4. Her husband's friends do notice. We gawk because she is beautiful, and we are impressed by the care she takes in her appearance. A black sweater dress, patent leather loafers, a long gold necklace of various sized hoops, chic black sunglasses, and that lipstick, drawing the eye to her small mouth, the shape exaggerated by extending the color ever so slightly beyond her lips. The rest of us are in jeans and sweaters. It is fall, and the air is brisk when we walk the half-mile through the village and down to the lake. But even her glamour cannot compete with the vivid yellows and oranges lit by the late afternoon sun. 5. They are about to start their work. They have reviewed the guidelines, asked questions, wiped their mouths of bagel crumbs with recycled napkins, and drained their lukewarm beverages. All chatter has stopped. The recording device is switched on. Someone reads the summary of the first grant application. I have been given the video link to observe the proceedings. Instead, I get more coffee and change out of my PJs. I don't think about what will happen if my project is not funded. I am searching for a flat rock to steady myself amid the uneven rocks on the shore of the sunlit lake. I am listening to the ceaseless crashing of the brook. I am eating Persian quiche and a rustic apple tart with old friends on a Sunday afternoon, while a breeze takes down the last of the yellow leaves.
Thank you, Leah. Our next reader is Zach Goldberg. He is a writer, educator, and arts organizer from Durham, North Carolina. He's the author of I'd Rather Be Destroyed from Button Poetry 2024, September, brand new book. And the chapbook, oh, I forgot to ask you, it's an X and a V. Did you say 15?
Sure.
Okay, 15. Nomadic Press, Black Lawrence, 2020. His work can be found in Pleiades, Rhino, and elsewhere. Zach is a proud co-founder of Buckslam, Minnesota, a volunteer at Bone Shaker Books, and a staff member of the Loft Literary Center. He lives on occupied Dakota land in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Welcome, Zach.
Thanks so much. It's like really amazing to find this space. I never knew about this. It feels like I discovered a thing. So thanks. It's really awesome. I'm gonna read some stuff from my book. As Marg mentioned, it is new, and I like having it. It's cool. This is the first poem from the book. It features a line from Eduardo C. Corral. I'm an Aries, which means I'd rather be destroyed than ignored. My mother loves to tell this story, how once as an infant, I bit down on her breast when she raised her chin from me to chastise my older brother. See, attention is my currency of choice. Never mind its proximity to violence. I grew up wanting a reason to kick, to be kicked. I grew up believing there's a scientific explanation for everything that happens in the Bible. Pillar of salt, column of fire. I learned that an act of God can be predicted by the movements of large bodies, a simple trick of astrophysics. 3 days after the solar eclipse, my mother calls to tell me the Torah scrolls have been moved from our synagogue to a safe location. This must be the end of days. I mark the blood over my door. I brace myself to be passed over. Unseen hand that blots out first the sun and then each firstborn son. What makes my brother such a worthy offering? Can't I tempt a destroying angel? Can't I sit on the receiving end of wrath? Tremble if God forgets you. Tremble if God remembers. Darkness was the 9th plague, and then there was violence. Thanks. That is in my book. It's called I'd Rather Be Destroyed. I have some if anybody wants to buy them or just look at them. That's cool too. I come to poetry from the world of spoken word and poetry slam. As Marg mentioned, I run a poetry slam called Buck Slam. It's every second Wednesday at Moon Palace, so we just had one last night. You all missed it, sorry, but you can come in February on the 12th if you want to. Yeah, this poem is going to be more in that spoken word vein, and let me see if I can find it. I'm supposed to have it memorized, but do I? We'll find out. Okay, stop me if you've heard this one. So, a minister, an atheist, and a Jewish man walk into a bar. The bartender's like, "What do you have?" And they order a scotch. Get it? Okay. So, the joke is, all three of them are the same person, and that person is my father, and my father always orders a scotch. Okay, stop me if you've heard this one. So, my father walks into a synagogue. He does not know any of the Hebrew prayers, but he knows all their beautiful names. He knows that a rabbi must bless the wine before he is permitted to drink it. However, my father is the type of atheist who will shake a holy man's hand with his fingers crossed behind his back. So naturally, he becomes an ordained minister online, like a joke no one but him finds funny. Stop me if you've heard this one. Okay, so my father walks into a bar. He does not know the name of anything he would not drink, so he asks the bartender for any drink with a beautiful name. So my father walks into a bar and sees a holy man at the counter. The bartender says, "What do you have?" And my father asks for absolution with his fingers crossed behind his back and is not sure who he is speaking to. So my father walks out of AA because they mentioned God one too many times, and he is his own higher power. So my father walks into a bar and never leaves. So I walk into a bar and see my father at the counter. I ask him what he's doing here in my joke, and he says, "Can you even imagine a bar without me in it?" So my father and I walk into a bar together, and the bartender says grace. My father and I walk into a bar, and the bartender says, "What do you have?" And my father orders a scotch, and I order a scotch, and we become our own fathers. So I walk into a bar, and there's a rabbi at the counter. The bartender says, "What do you have?" And I say, "Make me something with a beautiful name. I don't much care what's in it." And the rabbi says, "Shining One, Morning Star, even God has beautiful names for the devil." So I walk into my parents' house, and my mother has hidden all the wine bottles. I walk into AA with my fingers crossed behind my back. I walk into bars again and again. I have nights that don't end when the night ends. I tell jokes no one but me finds funny. Stop me if you've heard this one. So I walk into a bar, and the bartender's like, "What do you have?" And I say, "I don't know. What did you serve my father?" The bartender says, "Actually, we haven't seen him around much lately." And I know my father didn't get religious, but maybe he did find absolution, and it wasn't at the bottom of a bottle. Maybe he swallowed the same curse so many times that it turned into a prayer in his mouth. So my father, minister, Jew, atheist, addict, he walks into grace as though it were a bar or a synagogue, some room he does not belong in but keeps finding himself in anyway. And I order a scotch. And then it's just me at a bar, drinking his drink, telling his joke, and no one is laughing. Stop me if you've heard this one. No, really, stop me if you've heard it. Somebody stop me.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Thanks, y'all. Yeah, so there's a lot of poems in this book about being Jewish and having daddy issues and stuff like that. It's fun. It's a good time sometimes. But I'm gonna read some new stuff. In the spoken word scene, we say new shit, and everyone goes, new shit. So I'm gonna say, I'm reading some new shit. New shit. Thank you. If you don't like saying shit, I apologize. This is from a little thing I've been working on, which is sort of a weird, thematically related collection of sonnets. So these are gonna be three sonnets. 1. A skillful constellation raised me, son of spark and sound. My parents had their work cut out for them. The choir's Yiddish-tongued soprano and a prophet smart enough to play the fool. My brother, who no one could prove existed, just a theory like the phantom pull of gravity. The house would buckle under warring physics. I broke out discovered more than empty space, a vast, expanding canopy of light, the boys who bruised me in the day and loved me like a comet, village in the sky. A constellation isn't made of stars, it's made of empty space between them. 2. My father wants the fate of stars, to be incinerated upon death and cast into the darkest silhouette. Maybe he thinks cremation offers some degree of freedom, some atonement for his sins, real or imagined. But the rabbis say we leased our likenesses from God, and so, according to tradition, bodies must be buried here on earth, not burnt. Of course, my father's never been one for tradition, so I found a loophole. Martyrdom ignites the laws of death and sends them up in flames. It's simple, really. He just has to die defending what he swore was never there. 3. And what are we to make of it? That God says numerous as stars but never calls us bright? Are we not meant to light the way? So many of us flickering and spread across the sky. I've heard astronomers will sometimes only know a star by how another astral body floats in space. When gravity performs its dance around a hidden point, there must be something dense and burning and alive just out of sight.
Right.
I think that history can be like that. It pulls us all around a central point that few of us can see. We call it a disaster, from the Latin for bad star.
Yeah, fantastic. Good.
All right, I'm gonna do a couple more. Yeah, I don't know. I like being here. This is really a lovely space. This book has some weird form poem experiments in it that I had a good time doing. This next one is contrapuntal, so there's 2 stanzas. You can read either side, and then you can also read them across. This is a contrapuntal for the crossing of the Red Sea. This is what you might call a miracle. God cut through the world's belly to drive our people into it, the angel of death hovering above us as we left our enemies behind. How did we outrun the salt, but hold this steady march through the eye of death's needle? There's always another villain, more pain, more crimson passing through our doors, framed with lamb's blood, a carnal ribbon of tongues. That was the night we became so many different deaths. Don't ask why God has done this. God didn't split open like a wound. God never condemned innocents to die. Diaspora was not a force of nature, it was human violence, and as long as we live in it, we will never know true liberation. C. First, there was an ocean, and then a path to walk our long history across like a road for the chosen. This story is about a means of survival. We escaped drowning in so many floods. Ask not the reason for the salt. The only route to life will lead across river after river. Luckily, we heard you can heal pain with water. So one night we soaked our feet in order to evade a bright phalanx of raving murderers. Now we fit safely between the pages of your holy books. Every place we've called home abolished the ocean. We did that because it was deemed holy. We built a nation from this salt water, and we will continue to hold back the tide even if it comes crashing to our feet. Red Sea. This is what you might call a miracle. First, there was an ocean, and then a path God cut through the world's belly to walk our long history across, to drive our people into it like a road for the chosen. This story is about the angel of death hovering above us as a means of survival. We escaped. We left our enemies behind, drowning in so many floods. Ask, how did we outrun the salt, but not the reason for the salt? Hold this steady march. The only route to life will lead through the eye of death's needle, across river after river. Luckily, there's always another villain. We heard you can heal pain with more pain, more crimson passing through water. So one night we soaked our feet, our doors framed with lamb's blood in order to evade a carnal ribbon of tongues, a bright phalanx of raving. That was the night we became murderers. Now we fit safely between so many different deaths. Don't ask the pages of your holy books why God has done this. God didn't split every place we've called home open like a wound. God never abolished the ocean. We did that. Condemned innocents to die because it was deemed holy. Diaspora was not a force of nature, it was human. We built a nation from this salt water and violence, and as long as we live in it, we will continue to hold back the tide. We will never know true liberation, even if it comes crashing to our feet. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say, being an American Jew is super weird right now. And I don't know if I share the same opinion as everybody in this room, but I'll just say that the assumption that I will support everything that Israel does, like murdering civilians and committing genocide, is very frustrating. And that is a conversation that I would be happy to have with anybody, because I think what's going on is pretty messed up. I'm going to read one final poem. This is a poem that's very much about my relationship with spirituality and deity. I was raised Jewish, obviously, and I also, my degree is in religious studies, so I just did a lot of going around and learning stuff. I have a lot of friends who are ministers. This poem is called Tetragrammaton, which, if you don't know, is like a term for the name of God, which in Jewish tradition, you're not allowed to say it. You just refer to it. And I thought it was nice because we're technically in a place of worship right now, so why not? 1. My mother always sang the harmonies in synagogue, and her voice was like no instrument, magic enough to cast a shatter on my siddur, on my understanding, 4 intervals of majesty, my childhood wrecked with wonder. The not knowing made a temple of that temple. I traced the Hebrew with my English tongue and hoped I was pronouncing prayers correctly. I sang when it was asked of me, stayed silent when it counted, would watch the old men rocking back and forth as if they knew the will of God, whatever mystery hid beneath the black keys on a piano, astonished by the words I wouldn't say aloud, by the world I couldn't conceive. 2. All I knew was sound. I learned the art of letters, their gravel in my throat, missing vowels hidden in the script but somehow known. Was I expected to understand or just to sing? Melody, my only heritage. I couldn't find the line from then to now, and finally, that name, the single word, the theonym I wasn't meant to speak. Why not? If voice is what lifts a word from the page, unfastens it from death and reveals its meaning, then what am I to make of names that shed their sound in air? I had a voice without a history to bind it, and so the letters ran together, blended ink. No words held court in me, just song. 3. The more I grew, the more it seemed to me that parts of faith were kept opaque. One day, I witnessed a prayer trip over its own history on the way to God. So what? I thought at first. I always knew the truth. I'm a poet. Even my awe is performative. But it stuck in me like a thorn, like a nail. I pulled it out and became it. Fancied myself so sharp you couldn't even see the edge of me. Invisible right up until the moment I cut the air beneath a rabbi's sermon. Soft underbelly of a synagogue, yes. I abandoned mystery for more earthly ignorance. Resigned to dry disdain for men who dangled God in front of me like a fishhook. I didn't speak for fear I'd break my tongue. 4. I nicked my face with the blade of Occam's razor, bled a speck of red onto the sanctuary floor. Then, like a flood that brings the end of doubt, I was destroyed by a single note, a long-lost skeleton key ungating a deadbolt. I'm open now. I make room for grace, empty for it, content to know what I don't know. I clear the table and wait to be amazed. I don't believe in God. I believe in sound, the not knowing. No language, art, or science here. No bird calls, no church band, no orchestra of wayward mothers. Only a skybound tremble made magic, the promise and the payoff. A word is not a map to God, but it can show you where to look. It can tell you what to sing. Thanks very much, y'all.
One thing I love about this series is in hearing 4 readers to get such variety, and I've heard Naomi read, and you're in for yet another treat tonight. Before we get to her work, this is the moment at which we thank Unity Church for offering this space for free, and so if you have a buck or two that you'd like to contribute, that would be great. This is normally when I would pass the basket, but is there a basket tonight? Of course not. I'm passing the envelope for anyone who would like to help out. Thank you. Naomi Cohn is the author of The Braille Encyclopedia, Brief Essays on Altered Sight. This is from Rose Metal Press, 2024, which examines vision loss and relearning to read and write as an adult. A writer and teaching artist, Cohn's work explores reclamation. Her past includes a childhood among Chicago academics, involvement in a guerrilla feminist art collective, and work as an encyclopedia copy editor, community organizer, grant writer, fundraising consultant, and therapist. A 2023 McKnight Artist Fellow in Writing, her previous publications include a chapbook, Between Nectar and Eternity, from Red Dragonfly Press in 2013. Her work has also appeared or is forthcoming in AWP Chronicle, Baltimore Review, Fourth River, Hippocampus, Ninth Letter, Terrain, and Poetry, among other places. Cohn has also appeared on NPR and has been honored by Best of the Net finalist and 2 Pushcart nominations. Raised in Chicago, she now lives on unceded Dakota territory in St. Paul, Minnesota. Welcome.
Wow, this is some hard acts to follow. So I wrote this thing about learning Braille, but none of the things I'm reading tonight have anything to do with Braille. So I'm passing out some Braille, so you can, get hands-on with it.
There you go.
You can make origami out of it. It's not precious, so you're not required to have any. Just saying. Have you all been tortured by this light this whole time?
That was lovely. Never noticed.
So actually I want to start with a poem that's not mine, and I'm going to try and do it from memory, so we might have a little pratfall. And it's a Lucille Clifton poem, and it's about her particular experiences in this life, but I always recognize something at the end. My life is not, I don't have the same forces acting on me as she did, but something about this poem always speaks to me, and I hope it'll speak to you. Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model, born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up here on this bridge, standing between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come, celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. So, thanks. This is just, I love this series, and I love, it's like such a strong thread in our wonderful literary ecosystem. So that's what I'm focusing on these days when things try to kill me. So don't worry, I'm not going to do a poem for each job that I've had. But maybe, actually I'm going to mix up the order a little. I'm going to start, I will start with a poem about my encyclopedia job called Error. So if it's not obvious, having been someone who was like, could find typos, going blind was a little weird, embarrassing. So, Error. In the late 1980s, I worked as a copy editor, proofreader, and fact checker for the Encyclopedia Britannica. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
It's actually kind of nice not having this thing and being like, oh, yeah, just saying. My one brief corporate job. I earned my bread and butter by finding the widows and orphans, the third S nestled like a cancer cell in confession. The Chicago Manual of Style was our prayer book, a typo, a sin. To this day, I cannot place a comma outside the closing quotation mark without a pinprick. I was the sort of person who turned off the grammar function on word processing program because I was more highly trained than the software. This is a fact. What is a fact? These are troubling times for facts. But let me offer a fact checker's answer. When I worked at Britannica, a fact was something that could be verified in 3 reputable printed sources. Back then, printed meant a thing on paper. In the late 1980s, the Britannica's annual supplement, it became a fact that the writer Bruce Chatwin died of a rare fungal disease contracted on his extensive travels. I made this a fact that found its way into print because I found this information in 3 Britannica accepted sources. This fact was in fact a lie. Chatwin died of AIDS. It has been a shift of many years to become a typo accepting person, to become, in fact, an engine of error. So the lovely folks at State Services for the Blind, on very short notice, made me a set of the Braille Encyclopedia in Braille because I kind of suck at reading paper, and my memory in my 60s is not what it used to be. So I thought, oh, I'll just read the thing about Braille in Braille. Won't that be cool and awesome? Well, the thing is, I suck at reading Braille. So I have this poem sort of read, sort of memorized, and it's called Legal. A legal line cuts between vision and blindness. A person takes certain tests, and the results become a passport, making one a citizen of one country or another. Read 8 small characters on a line in a chart, and one is allowed to extend, for now, a stay in the country of sight. This makes as much sense to me as saying that one side of the fish is in Mexico and the other in Texas, or shaving a clear-cut line across the 49th parallel, calling it the US-Canadian border. Ravens, smoke from fires, slanting rain, all cross this border without a thought. So going back to Eris, I think I can probably do this one from memory. It's called ointment. Something a fly gets stuck in. A salve, an unguent, a healing balm meant to be soothing. In my medicine cabinet, half-used tubes wait. Their emptied ends coiled like scorpion tail. A tube of toothpaste and a tube of ointment feel so similar in the hand. It's like, oh, we didn't see what's coming. I didn't need to do the last one. Edit. It's like, I should have edited that bio down too. Anyway, a tube of Decimex and a tube of Colgate feels so different in the mouth.
Very good.
So, I should read, so this book started as an essay and then it became prose poems and then it sort of became essays, little brief essays. But I want to read a piece that's still maybe more true to its poem roots. It's called Synesthesia. How I can't hear as well with my glasses off. How it feels foolish to tease apart the threads of different senses, of memory, imagination. How I can't tell you whether I feel or hear the change of texture under my white cane as I move from ice to open ground. How I feel I have seen the orange of an oriole when I hear its jazzy call dropping from high in the cottonwoods. How the smell of wet acorns makes me think I see their clever shape, their little shaggy berets atop glossy nuts. How ice smells blue.
Nice.
So, Encyclopedia encyclopedias are about a bunch of things, but maybe one of the things they often include, like a dictionary, is a definition, which, note to self, it's a really crappy way to start a poem. It has like no verb, it's just like some, it's like a really slow way in, so don't do it. But also definitions are like, what do things mean to us? And so one of the things that getting to go through vocational rehab and just my life in the last 30 years and then writing this book has kind of helped me understand is just all these things mean different things to each of us. So this piece is kind of about what blindness means to somebody that I encountered on my way. And I often start with this one because it's called kindness, which, seems like a good thing to begin with, but I guess I didn't start there tonight. Kindness. A kind friend suggests, write about compelling strangers, the glint of connection illuminated in a moment, one stranger's hand gripping another's, mind the gap to step from a brightly painted boat to the salt-stiffened grasses of an abandoned island in the Venetian lagoon. A shaft of sunlight passes over a landscape, the beauty real, then gone. Compelling, but not in the sense of those invisible strangers who design algorithms that compel me to buy a used yak wool cardigan and a pair of paisley print rubber cowboy boots on ThreadUp. Or those unjust justices who tried to steal women's authority over their own bodies. Lucky me, I don't have a uterus anymore, so I can't personally be compelled to bear young. No, I'm talking about the compelling connection of strangers' kindness, how kindness intertwines with kinship. Like when I'm walking to my studio, I've got my cane out, and I'm walking about a half mile from my house in St. Paul, and I pass this guy sitting on the ledge in front of the old elementary school, now repurposed as a professional building. He's sitting there, his bottle in its brown paper bag sits next to him. As I pass, he says, "Can I ask you a personal question?" And then, "Are you blind?" And then tells me about his old girlfriend, a flight attendant, who got glaucoma, and then they fired her. And then he pulls up his trouser leg to show me his metal prosthetic shin and says, "Being blind, wow, that must suck. Can I give you $10? I don't take the money, but that kindness, by all means, I take that kindness."
Very nice. Very nice. Nice.
Okay, I have two more pieces here. And this one is kind of a pair. So there's a poem called Yard Site, which is about lighting a memorial candle for my mother and sort of about her character. And this one's a little bit more about my father. And my brother makes an appearance too, but it's with permission. I took out his beer gut in this version. So it's called Yearning. If my mother's been dead 15 years, that means my father's been dead 20. So we can never get back that last pastrami sandwich. The one my brother and I smuggled from Manny's Deli after my brother picked me up at O'Hare on one of our mutual visits back to Chicago. Was it 1999? 2000? We both had moved away years before, but sometimes managed to time our visits to our ailing parents to also see each other. We can't ever feel again that exact heartburn. After standing in the Manny's lunch crowd line, after shouting, "Pastrami!" at the corned beef guy, making him turn his bulk and his knives toward the peppery slab. After eating both halves of the sandwich and the pickle and the entirely excessive latke. Watching the grease from that extra sandwich we ordered sit on the table next to us, speaking with a spreading mark on the white deli bag. We can get pastrami. There will be pepper, salt and fat. There will be meat cured to the color of an heirloom rose. But we can't sit on a lakefront park bench with our father in the August heat as he ate first the latke and then that entire sandwich. The one we hid from our mother because she would not have approved of all that cholesterol. We can't get back my father with eating without dropping one cracked peppercorn, one single caraway seed, though his brain no longer told him where his feet were or his cousin's name. He still knew how to hold on to that gargantuan sandwich with as much feeling as a blues harp player before letting loose the most wailing riff. He still knew my brother, who clambered onto the riprap after his swim in Lake Michigan. My father offered his dripping wet child the leftover pickle, all that was left, glowing in the afternoon light.
Thank you.
Sorry, was that a little too?
Yeah. We don't do feelings. That was what the piece of yard site was, which is that we don't do feelings, we just swear. That's what poor Marg got a bit of that. Yeah. This one's called Yellow. Light with a wavelength, and this will be it. You'll be released soon. Yellow. Light with a wavelength of around 570 nanometers. Yellow pigments come from so many things you should not eat, like cadmium and uranium, one form of which is actually called yellow cake. What is that? Genuine Naples yellow pigment was made of lead. There's chrome yellow, yellows from tin and rutile and benzodiazepines. Other than the honest dirt of a natural yellow ochre, all a pretty poisonous lot, those yellows. And even if you could find a brilliant yet edible yellow pigment, nothing could beat the yellow of those eggs my spouse made me a few days after my abdominal surgery a few years ago. Propped in my tattered orange bathrobe, I was grateful my decayed vision spared me the details of my 5-inch incision, covered with its grin of Steri-strips. Still wobbly from the useful poison of general anesthetic, I wanted none of my usual sriracha, kimchi, or salsa verde. I declined even black pepper. Just wanted salt and scrambled eggs, a fluffy, buttery mass on dark pumpernickel. I'm not even embarrassed to repeat the animal grunts of delight over being alive to eat that yellow cloud, to live with a man who knows how to scramble an egg, to still see enough to see the visible yellowness of that wavelength reflected back into my eyes. Yellow, hallelujah, yellow butter in the pan, yellow sun clearing my neighbors' houses on a winter's morning. Sometimes I stare straight at it. What do I have to lose? Thank you so much. Let's clear the deck. It's okay, yeah, I know, take a little. Well, thank you. Let's, gosh, what a night. Thank you so much. Zach mentioned this, there are books that folks have brought tonight. We hope that you will stay and mingle and meet our readers and browse the books and buy the books and just enjoy some time together. So next month's readers, this series is always the second Thursday of the month. So it's on February 13th. Our readers are Howard Lieberman, Catherine Reed Day, Jay White, and Sheila O'Keefe. So do keep the evening going either here or sometimes folks go over to Sweeney's, which is over on Dale, just south of Selby, for just some more hangout time and some food and beverage. All right, that's it. Final round of applause for these wonderful folks.